Yeah, Big Kev's pretty excited, and with good reason. From midfield battler to race winner in just 2 rounds. Not even the big fella's stain remover works that quickly.
Race victory for Paul Morris this weekend and a first round victory as well.
2 weeks ago at Calder Park, Paul Morris had an amazing win under extreme pressure. Now, 6 different winners from 7 rounds.
Oh, he gives Johnson a little hit. In fact, it's enough to get up the inside.
A stop-go penalty ruined the champ's day.
I don't think that was that professional. I've got to give you the tip.
Allowing Bright, Ingle and top forward runner Johnson a rare chance to close on points. Last year, Sydney's Oran Park Raceway was the scene of a frightening start line inferno. Today, Paul Morris will try to set the track alight with raw speed in round 8 of the Shell Championship Series. Exclusive to your home of motorsport, Network 10.
Welcome. Today we're southwest of Sydney at Oran Park Raceway for round 8 of the Shell Championship Series. And after 2 sprint rounds in Perth and Melbourne, today it's back to a 2-race format, 36-lap races and a compulsory pit stop. And those pit stops will be made in an all-new multi-million-dollar pit lane complex with greatly improved working conditions. It features a new wider lane, pit garages as you can see, and VIP pit suites up above. Well, with 7 rounds down, what lap are we on? What's the state of play? After a difficult round at Calder, Mark Scaife's lead in the championship has diminished, and we now have quite a fight on our hands between the 2 Holden Racing Team drivers, with Jason Bright just 17 points behind. And the Shell cars are closing in too. Stephen Johnson and Paul Radisich have shown great form in recent races, and Johnson in particular is within striking distance of the pointy end of the leaderboard. The championship is a long way from a foregone conclusion, with 6 rounds and 12 races still to come. There's some big points on offer and some very interesting events. The 2 endurance races at Ipswich and Bathurst offer a big points bonus, a pit stop race at Winton. There's also the New Zealand race at Pukekohe, which is the first time the championship has gone offshore, and an all-new event at Sandown. Some interesting figures have come out of the first half of the championship, and to begin with, we're going to look in more detail at the battle of the brands. And the Holden versus Ford parity debate is always one chocked full of emotion, but when you look across the stats, it would seem as though the regulations are close to perfect now, Barry.
Well, I'm down in the pit lane with the managers of Holden and Ford Motorsport, and the first question I would have asked them 12 months ago is about parity. So what do you reckon?
We have parity. We've got parity of performance. We've never had it better than this. Racing's never been better. Holden, Ford, Ford 3. No one driver except for Scaife's won 2 races. Couldn't be better.
John?
Yes, parity performance, I guess it's there. We've seen the improvement on the Ford side of things with Stephen Johnson and Marcus Ambrose come on stream and lift their game. But we still say that technical performance is not, parity is not there at this stage. We're in the second stage of Operation Blueprint, which is to even out the engineering levels of the car. We say that last year we gave a concession almost 12 months ago in the aerodynamic area, and now next year we're looking for an improvement in the engine area as far as a new cylinder head for the Holden, and then we'll see exact parity in our eyes.
But you have to admit, engine performance-wise, there's very little in it.
I don't think engines are winning or losing this particular event. It's the whole package. It's the chassis, it's the engine. And what's very important, as John mentioned, are the drivers. Drivers are suddenly becoming more and more important because the cars are very close. I mean, Calder, 20-odd cars on 1 second. How close can you get?
It's good. Whatever you like, can say, it's fantastic for the sport. It's been brilliant this year.
Yes, it is very close. 3 wins to Ford, 4 wins to Holden, and we're leading the championship, but we're only leading it by a small margin. No one can afford to sit back for the rest of the year. They have to race. They can't win the championship by points accumulation from here on in. It really is a race to the finish.
Best of luck to you both, and congratulations.
Thanks, Barry.
And in any race to the finish, everyone wants to finish first. And the best way to finish first is to qualify in first place. Now, if we look at the pole positions from the first 7 rounds this year, Mark Scaife well on top with 3 and 1 each to Murphy, Ambrose, Johnson and Radicic. That's from the first 7 rounds. This weekend, we add Craig Lowndes to that total as well. So amazing variety. 6 different pole position winners from 8 rounds. The man who didn't take pole this weekend, but he's taken his first top 10 performance. Outstanding effort from Cameron McConville. Must be good on your home track to get into that top 10.
Oh, it's absolutely fantastic, Mark. Look, we've done quite a few test days here now, probably 5 days, so some 350, 400 laps, and we're really hoping to be well and truly in the top 10. We just snuck in and we were quickest in 1 practice sessions there, so the car's going really well.
Oh, well done. Now, if we have a look at this top 10 qualifying positions, Lowndes, of course, on pole, the first Ford pole at Oran Park, in fact, since 1995. Great effort by David Bernard to get himself into the top 10, and you yourself rounding out the top 10. Now, you're at the back of that top 10, but as we've seen in some of these pit stop rounds earlier in the year, leading those opening laps isn't so much an advantage as we saw with Seaton when he got caught out at Eastern Creek.
Well, that's right. If you sit back a few spots, you can actually maybe pick the tactics a little better and either go with the front couple of cars or stay out and lead the race for a bit and make your own call. But we'll see how we go. I'm sure Wally Story and the boys will call the right shots.
Wish you all the best.
Thanks, Mark.
When you look at the breakdown of this season's races, on 4 occasions, Paul Radicic has been the fastest man on track. Craig Lowndes has also set the quickest race lap 4 times. Now, what's really interesting about these fastest race lap statistics is that both Paul and Craig haven't always been able to convert their pace into race wins, and in doing so take the lion's share of those valuable championship points. Paul Radicic, you showed at Barbagallo that you certainly got the speed, but it's rounds like Hidden Valley that have let you down, haven't they?
Yeah, they have. I think there should be double points on fastest laps myself, but yeah, you're right. Hidden Valley, we didn't start the races on Sunday, and we've had a few events like that which have caused us problems, and of course, if you're not scoring points, if you're not on the track, there's nothing you can do about it.
Well, Craig Lowndes, you're top of the table with Paul in terms of setting the most fastest laps, but it's your conversion rate that's let you down. With the exception of the opening leg of the Adelaide 500, there's been no other race wins for you.
Well, no, unfortunately not. But I guess this year was all about learning, and we go into a race weekend like we're standing here today, and we don't have a lot of data. But by come race day or races on the Sunday, the car is pretty well set up. So we're lacking sort of early in the week, but by the time race day comes around, the car is very competitive. And the way the competition is, unless you're at the front, you do struggle, and that's where we're not being, and we'd like to get there.
Well, boys, traditionally Oran Park has always been a happy hunting ground for HRT. You've both showed that you've got the pace. Let's hope you can turn it around today for the Blue Oval.
We hope so.
Yeah, we'll be trying very hard.
Good on you. Best of luck.
Now let's look in greater detail at Oran Park Raceway. We are situated 47 kilometres southwest of Sydney, not too far from the city of Campbelltown. There's Camden there as well. Oran Park situated almost ideally between Camden and Liverpool. 11 turns, 2.62 kilometres. The lap record held by Craig Lowndes. He went very close to that time in qualifying yesterday, but look at the qualifying record from Scaife, 7.4. It's a rather unique circuit with a lot of up and down undulations, and for a closer look, let's go with Greg Murphy for the Kmart inside line.
So welcome aboard the Kmart car for a lap of Oran Park out in Sydney's west. We're coming to turn 1 here, which has really reached at about 260 odd k's. You're hard on the brakes, and then through the keep, which does catch a few out. You can see a lot of black marks down there from locking up tyres. People tend to lock up a lot of wheels there and often don't get around the corner. Head around now underneath the bridge, which is synonymous with Oran Park. You don't see many of those around the place. Into turn 3 this time. This track has got a lot of different corners. It's what we probably call a technical circuit. Lots of different shapes, lots of different speeds, some fast ones, slow ones, but it is quite a tricky place. 36 laps around here for the 2 races is going to be very tough on the tyres. We come up over the bridge this time. We've just been underneath it, come over the top, around the sweeping corner, and now into the undulating part of the circuit. Lots of dips, hard down in here. Be very careful, the car loads up quite heavily, and then around this one and down again into the Momo corner. Down a gear, down to third. A lot of curbs. You see the cars using a lot of the curbs here. Bit of off camber as we come out of Momo, and now the flip-flop. Very famous in Oran Park. You can't see over the top. It's a blind corner. It drops right down here into Recaro, the last turn on the track. Down a gear, and then climbing back out. Very, very tough one, this one. Exit out nice and wide, and that is a lap of Oran Park. Don't go away, because after the break we'll be back with race 1.
This was an incident from qualifying yesterday in the second session. Matt Neal in the brand new Big Kev Commodore found the wall at the final turn and slammed that car. He won't be competing today. A lot of damage done. Now, as I mentioned at the top of the show, we've got pit stops back on the agenda again this weekend at Oran Park, and covering the action in pit lane, Grant Denyer.
Well, welcome back to Pit Stop Racing, and today we get to enjoy this sensational $2 million facility out here in Oran Park, but it does pose some problems for the drivers here today, namely a change of surface. Out here where the cars normally run, a tar or an asphalt. Out where the pit bays are, it's cement, and slippery cement too. Some of the drivers have been struggling to pull their cars up on here and overshooting their pit bays. A costly mistake you just can't afford to make here in these pit stop races. The other thing, how long is a pit bay? Well, it's 5 metres. How long is a V8 supercar? 5 metres also, so no room to get in or out of these pit bays. If it's congested, I can assure you it's going to be a busy day down here.
And here's the situation after 7 rounds. We've had 18 races so far, and this analysis is very interesting. Mark Scaife's clearly been the guy when it comes to race wins, and these, by the way, are assembled in championship order. But look at the top 10 results. He's being dogged by his teammate Jason Bright. He's only 17 points behind. In 18 events, he's been in the top 10 16 times. He's only had 1 race win, but that's been the key to his success. Also very consistent, Russell Ingall, 13 times in the top 10 out of these 18 races. And looking further down, look at Radicic, for example. You saw that interview earlier. He's had 3 race wins, but not been able to convert quite so well. He's only been in the top 10 on 12 occasions. So it's interesting to review some of those numbers in the first 7 rounds of the championship. And as we said before, there's still a lot of racing to come. On the front row of the grid, Mark Scaife in the Holden Racing Team Commodore. HRT have not been displaced from the top spot on the podium here since 1996. But yesterday in qualifying, Lowndes did the business in the Gibson Motorsport Falcon. It'll be interesting to see whether or not we get a change in the order at the end of these 2 races.
It'd be interesting to see if they both come out the first corner, I think. Lowndes and Scaife.
It's quite incredible how 2 of those long-standing records of Holden Racing Team have been broken this year. Remember back at Barbagallo, they haven't been beaten in the West since 1996, and Paul Radicic put that record to rest as well, so things changing in 2001. Craig Lowndes, though, on pole position. His first pole for Ford and the first pole for the year for the Gibson Motorsport team. Scaife alongside David Bernard. Brilliant effort from the Haviland driver. This is the best qualifying performance so far from the youngster. He'll start out alongside Todd Kelly. Stephen Johnson and Russell Ingall out of row 3. Jason Bright, and good performance from John Bauer. They'll start out of row 4.
Then Garth Tander in 9th position, Cameron McConville 10th, Paul Radicic 11th, Stephen Ellery, Mark Larkham, Greg Murphy, Larry Perkins, Marcus Ambrose, who had a little fire yesterday with a throttle problem back in 16.
Sure did. Tony Longhurst and Cameron McLean. Brad Jones still struggling, but he's closed the gap there, 0.7 of a second. May not seem like a lot, but it's still a lot around Oran Park with something like 27 cars covered by 1 second in qualifying. Mick Donoghue making his return to the Altitude team. Paul Norris, not the speed he showed at Calder Park, right back there in 23rd. And Jason Bargwanna still struggling with the Valvoline machine.
You've got to go all the way back to position 27 for there to be 1 second covering that group of cars from 1 to 26. Rodney Forbes, John Faulkner, Richards, then Jason Richards from Team Kiwi, Matt Neal, Thomas Mazzeri, Gary Holt and Luke Cedars, position 32. So 32 cars as usual, the capacity grid. And there's the pole sitter yesterday recording a 1 minute 8 flat, or near enough to it.
Quite an incredible lap. As he started his lap, he had a big sideways moment coming through the sweeper in turn 1. Lost himself a little bit of time, but in a very short space, I think 50 or 60 metres, the telemetry showed he'd actually caught back up the speed that he lost. So it was an amazing lap by Lowndes under enormous pressure and nailing the 6th different pole position winner from 8 rounds. This has been a most competitive V8 Supercar Championship.
That's one of the things, one of the features of the shootout is the gaps between the cars have been, if anything, artificially opened up by comparison to pure qualifying. But one of the great things about it is we're getting different results in terms of the pole sitter, and that's good. The variety is a good thing.
And who's your money on then for the first corner?
It's a hard call, isn't it? I reckon.
Yes, your team. I forgot.
It's very hard to be impartial here, but I'd say there's a chance that Mark will make a pretty good start. These guys have been so strong here in recent years, but it's going to be a great contest between these 2 drivers, Scaife and Lowndes. The last time they got together, 36 laps, by the way, the Ford race analysis, 94 Ks, about 45 minutes of racing. talked before about that 1 second covering such a large group of cars. Now the pit window, the theoretical pit window, opens between laps 6 and 26 for their compulsory.
It's going to be interesting to see how Bernard goes, because that's his best position so far, and he's really charged.
Waiting for the all clear as the final cars come into place. Some people are already virtually sitting on the ribbon, and you can hear the cars in the background.
That's incredible, isn't it?
I wouldn't like to be a valve or a valve spring right now.
Long time.
Scaife gets the jump.
Yes, got it.
Bernard goes up the inside. It looks like Lowndes has made a tardy start, and he's been swallowed a little bit. You've got the Kmart car up there on the outside, so will Bernard hold on to second? I think he might. You do not want to be one out and one wide at turn 2 here. It's a very dirty race line, and they tend to all nose to tail when they go down to turn 3. Have we got a clean start? No, we haven't.
Greg Murphy in trouble. He's been hit in the rear by Mick Donoghue in the Altitude car. So Murphy's had a disastrous opening stint of this lap. He's stranded there at turn 2. Wonder if he can get that car going before the field comes around the next time. Brilliant start from David Bernard. He really jumped off the line, swamped Lowndes as he made his charge up the inside. He's up to second.
Yeah, he could. It's amazing, isn't it, to get a good result in practice, and he's really on the crest of a wave.
Well, Todd Kelly actually squeezed through after that great start. So Kelly now is up to second. Bernard drops back to third.
And
Murphy's still in trouble at turn 2. Safety car, we believe, is being called out. Murphy is stranded. He cannot move that car.
That's very unusual. Very rarely do the cars end up damaged to such an extent that you can't actually drive them off the edge of the road. I'd like to see what the damage is to that car, and obviously there's a bit of damage around the back there, but why can't it be moved?
See cars heading left, right and centre. Mick Donoghue followed Murphy across the grass. He had everything locked up, drilled the back of the Kmart car. And Murphy went only a few metres beyond that. There's the safety car signs, waving yellow flags. So not even one lap in anger. And there is Greg Murphy. Probably can't understand himself why he can't move the car.
Did you actually? I didn't actually see the beginning of that.
No, we might try and catch that on one of our Shell Helix replays, but there is often drama when you get to the first corner here. They've got quite a wide main straight at Oran Park and a very narrow race line. When you go through that kink down there at turn 1, there's a little short straight section then for this second turn. You look how dirty it is around the edge of the road there. Replay of the start. We'll see if we can find some answers for you.
Lowndes gets swamped by Scaife, but look at Bernard up the inside. He really got good traction in the Haviland Ford. Kelly came around the other side, so they boxed Lowndes' ears. Johnson went up as well. So there was a real push and shove through that first turn.
Who's that, Steve?
Ambrose.
Ambrose. Oh, yeah, boy, Ambrose.
Now you could see the avoiding action that Mick Donoghue took. He was out on the grass.
And the glimpse that I saw of Murphy's car looked like the left front wheel was all skewed, like he'd broken a steering arm or something. And there's Greg Murphy out of the car.
Big disappointment for Greg. He's currently 6th in the Shell Championship Series points. There's the Kmart Racing team. Team boss Rob Crawford looking very disappointed. Larkham has come into the pit lane as well.
Just had a word to Rob Crawford just a moment ago. He said that Greg Murphy's gotten out of the car in disgust by the sounds of things, and he hasn't actually told the team what's quite wrong with it at this stage and why he can't move the car. So the team at this point are none the wiser either.
I think it's something associated with the front left wheel. In that replay that we saw a moment ago, it looked like it was all skewed after Ambrose had made contact down there in the first turn. So we'll get all this cleaned up, and we'll be back after the break very shortly with a resumption of play for race 1, round 8 of the Shell Championship Series on your home of Motorsport, Network 10. Lights are out on the safety car as the field comes down off the top of the hill at the dogleg, with Mark Scaife in control from Todd Kelly, David Bernard, Craig Lowndes, Stephen Johnson, Russell Ingall, Jason Wright, Garth Tander, John Bowe and Paul Radisich. Scaife's got them all bunched up behind him there, and away goes. That was a very late dive into the pits by the safety car.
Look at Lowndes.
And Lowndes up the inside of Bernard. Looks like he's got a better run on David, and he might make this stick. This is the battle for third. No, Bernard takes the ground back off him again.
You can see Craig just breathing down his neck at the restart. Wright's on the outside of Johnson. Ingall just gets a little bit of a help from Tander. Radisich in there too. Bowes of the field's trying to settle back into single file formation on this first lap. Just see Glenn Seaton, that terrible moment at Eastern Creek when the FTR Falcons were caught out leading the race. There's been some debate whether it's actually an advantage or a disadvantage to lead these races, particularly before the compulsory pit stop. Just keep in mind, you cannot pit when the safety car is on the circuit.
Well, you can only make a judgment on that with 20/20 hindsight, unfortunately, and that's the problem. Sometimes you can be a genius and sometimes a dunce, and you've got virtually no control over it.
It's going to be interesting. The window opens on lap 6, isn't it?
That's correct.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see how many people come in on it, because we've seen before when they all come in as soon as it opens, it's like a traffic jam.
Notice the different lines. Bernard, I think, almost rubbed the wall that time coming off the final corner. Lowndes driving the car much straighter on the approach run to the straight, trying to keep the load off the right rear tyre, which can be vulnerable around this track. He's really applying pressure to Bernard. He looks up the inside. David's awake up to it and tries to cover his ground, but that car's just getting a little loose in a couple of spots around here. Now he has a shot at him down the inside for turn 3. Again, Bernard covers his tracks, which he's perfectly entitled to do, but he's got a lot of pressure on him at the moment. Now Lowndes again, a little touch on the back of that car just to let him know he's there.
So good to see David Bernard having a competitive run. It's been a very, very tough Shell Championship Series so far. He's back in 24th in the championship. And now he's putting in a very, very competitive drive. He was fast here, straight out of the truck. He's been quick all weekend. He followed that through in the top 10 shootout when it counted. Now he's been able to take advantage of that good starting position. Locked in the battle here with Craig Lowndes for 3rd place.
It just looks to me like the back of the car's not quite behaving the way he wants to at the moment. We're talking about Bernard here.
Yeah, especially into turn 1.
Doesn't seem to put its power down, particularly in the low speed and mid-speed corners.
Mark Larkham, the Kasha Deco Rug Falcon out.
Yeah, very disappointing, Grant. Got a blind to start, and I don't know what's happened down there. I'd have to see the replay. Someone's lost control and belted us in the left-hand side as we've turned into the corner. I don't even know who it was. So, gee, it's a shame we can't get past this first corner. I mean, someone needs noosing, you know. Not good enough.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, mate.
Mark Larkham not happy about what happened at the first corner, and he's right. It's frustrating with all the effort, all the time, all the money that goes into getting 32 cars out there, and some guys decide that they want to complete the race before even one lap speed run.
Mark Skate pushing hard, flying lap 1:08.8. That's only about 0.8 of a second away from the pole lap set here yesterday by Craig Lowndes.
Lowndes just lost a bit of ground on that last half lap. Now under a little bit of pressure himself from Stephen Johnson. Bernard's just skipped away ever so slightly, and it looked like David was vulnerable there for the first couple of laps, and the back of the car was just sliding around a lot.
It may have been the rear tyres coming up to temperature.
That's right, and he also may have made an onboard adjustment to the anti-roll bars front and rear, and that can also trim and change the behaviour of the car.
So the order at the moment is Skate, Todd Kelly, 2.4 seconds behind the Holden Racing Team driver, David Bernard, Craig Lowndes, Stephen Johnson fighting over 3rd place, and it's Jason Wright, Russell Ingall, Garth Tander. Good to see the Valvoline Cummins car in the top 10. Paul Radisich 9th, John Bowe in 10th, and Cameron McConville, the Sydney sider, he's in 11th.
It does look as if Craig's lost a bit of his speed, doesn't it? Because he was all over the back of David Bernard, and now he seems to be struggling a bit.
Yeah, it just seemed like he'd had half a lap there where he just dropped off about 4 or 5 car lengths. He made a bit of ground again. He's quite strong at the bottom of the straight, but I reckon the car doesn't appear to be quite as good round here off the bridge, perhaps, as the other car. Might have a little bit too much understeer dialed in the car in the early part of the race. It takes a while for it to all settle down.
6 laps completed by our race leader, Mark Scaife, so the pit window is now open for the compulsory stop.
Scaife's disappeared. Look at that margin.
2.4 seconds it was last time around. There's the Castrol team ready for a stop. Ingall or Perkins looks like they're coming in early. There's a bit of activity up and down pit lane, actually. So we may see a flurry of activity here very quickly.
No, everywhere.
Who's going to peel off? Kelly's coming in.
Yeah, and Russell Ingall has also gone in with him. You saw the Castrol crew on standby there. Here they are. Glenn Seaton's coming in as well.
Paul Morris.
Slow it, though.
It's a long way. One of the things that we looked at yesterday was it takes about 35 seconds, excluding the stop, to just transit the pit lane here. Now, if anybody does get a stop-go penalty at this track, as a percentage of lap time, it'll be a big penalty on this circuit.
So, different strategies being played out here. Kmart team taking the safe option, get in and out as soon as you can. But as we've seen so many times, particularly by the Gibson Motorsport team, they like to run with a bit of clear track in front of them and try and leapfrog these guys.
Difficult pit situation for the mechanics here, because the pit is it sort of slopes downhill, so if they nudge a wheel or anything, the thing will go running off down to the bottom of the first corner. And also a wheel nut. Yesterday, a wheel nut was lost halfway up the pit lane, ended up down the end of the pit lane.
So Tander takes the opportunity to come in as well. Scaife, though, continues.
Now, some of those guys will only just get out before going down a lap. This is another thing that we thought about yesterday when you start crunching numbers. I think everybody managed to get through then, but only just. Because of the time it takes to transit the pit lane and do your stop and rejoin, it would be very easy to actually drop a lap. Now, second place, David Bernard's come in. Stephen Johnson's going with him. That'll make Lowndes second, and Scaife still at the top of the tree.
Cameron McConville's coming into pit lane, and Stephen Johnson, as you mentioned, Neil. What's interesting about these pit stops, I think, because of the length of pit lane and how long it takes the teams to trundle down pit lane, what we're seeing for a change is no real bunching up. The cars have come in smaller pockets or smaller groups at this stage, as opposed to everyone filing in one big line and stopping early in the pit stop window.
Well, this certainly shuffles the order. We'll see who's making good stops and who's not. Looks like everyone's making efficient, good stops. A lot of teams practicing late yesterday, and also this morning a glimpse there of Holden race team manager Jeff Gresh. So he'll be preparing for Mark Scaife to come in, who's now just coming up onto the tail of somebody. So it's Paul Morris. That's how close Morris went to being lapped. So you've got to make an efficient stop here, because if you did end up a lap down and the safety car came out, it's curtains.
We actually worked out that if you're more than 10 seconds or so behind the race leader when you came in to make the stop,
you get lapped.
On a clean lap, you just about get lapped.
Now, Scaife is staring intently at that digital readout on the PI research dashboard that he's got in that car, and he's staring at the 40Ks, and the reason is that we know there's electronic limiters in the car now, but there's such a downhill run at this part of the circuit, it would be very easy to do 41, 42Ks and then find yourself making an unscheduled visit to the pit.
And the other problem is, too, is the drivers have to discipline. This is only an ignition cutter. It doesn't change the fuel mapping at all. So if you come down the pit lane with a big boot full of throttle, the engine continues to meter out the same amount of fuel, so you can get a fire. And we saw it yesterday. Probably happened to Marcus Ambrose. Big load of unburned fuel going through the engine can easily start a fire under the bonnet.
So Lowndes is leading, and he's going berserk at the moment, trying to make ground on a cleared track. You saw him all crossed up through turns 6 and 7. What he'll try and do now is really make hay while he's got an empty bit of track in front of him.
Fastest lap so far for Lowndes is a 9.9. He's just done a 10.2, so he's probably hitting some traffic. Really, really critical this. We've seen the Gibson Motorsport team do it a number of occasions. A clear bit of track. Try and take as much ground as you can off your opposition.
We'll give you an order here, and it's Lowndes, Bright, Radisish, Bow, Longhurst, Brad Jones, Larry Perkins, Marcus Ambrose. Mark Scaife's rejoined in 9th. In fact, he's just tumbling on the computer order here. He's a little bit further down than that. So Ambrose, Stephen Richards, Jason Richards, Thomas Mazira, and then Mark Scaife as the order is resorted after these stops.
Gibson Motorsport team continued to run the gauntlet. Saw them get done in at streets of Canberra. Safety car came out on the lap. They were planning to pit. They got hung out to dry there.
Well, certainly these first 3 at this point have not stopped, so neither Lowndes nor Bright nor Radisish have made their stop at this stage, and it's the net gap between Craig Lowndes and Mark Scaife that's the critical issue at the moment. Scaife's in 13th.
You can come so horribly unstuck, can't you, if the old safety car.
Right about that.
Yeah. Oh.
Just had a word to Fred Gibson. He tells me they're going to leave Craig out so he can make hay while the sun shines, and if they can get those quick lap times that they're looking for and make up that ground on track, they'll keep him out there as long as they possibly can before they've got to bring him in.
I reckon they'll be a little bit surprised, Greg, by his lap speed at the moment. His last lap was a 1 minute 10.4. Look at that as a comparison to, say, Mark Scaife's quickest lap in the race so far, which was in the 8s, 1 minute 8.8. I'd actually say that Craig's race pace and everybody's race pace generally is a little bit flatter than we would have thought. John Bower.
Look a bit further down the order there. David Bernard did a 9.7, a 9.8 for Kelly. There'll be some quick times a bit further down. Nominal race leader is Mark Scaife. He's the first of the drivers to pit in the queue. He's in about 9th place.
Well, they've reacted to that news on those times. You're talking about Craig Lowndes' crew currently standing by and waiting for the kid to come in.
Yeah, I thought that'd be the case because he's actually on that last lap 0.4 of a second slower than Jason Bright. So the theory only works, the clear air theory only works if you're actually out there making ground. And it doesn't look like he's quite got the car pace at the moment. So they're actually losing ground to Jason Bright. You need to get him in, make the stop and get that out of the way. And that's exactly what they're doing, and Bright goes with him.
Yeah, just looking at those times, like David Bernard, a 9.5, a 9.7 for Kelly. Lowndes was cranking out some mid-10s, so the strategy wasn't actually working. They were losing time to their pursuers there.
The pace goes away quickly if your car balance is not right at Oran Park. It seems to eat tyres very quickly. Not an abrasive surface, but one that works the tyres hard. You've seen all the corners with the Greg Murphy Kmart inside line earlier on. Lots of undulation.
Critical stop here. Gibson Motorsport team well drilled. We've seen stops in the low 11-second bracket. How quickly can they turn him around? Well,
it's only just.
Every second, every split second critical here. This is going to be interesting to watch where he comes out now.
Here comes Bernard. He's at pace, so David goes by.
He's gone out in front of Jason Bright.
And I think that was Todd Kelly's gone with him. That was Kelly in the Kmart car right behind. So, and obviously Scaife's in front of those guys. I reckon Lowndes will pop out of all this about third or fourth. Because you got Scaife and then Bernard and Kelly were quite close. Radicic now takes his stop. Scaife, remember, had a bit of a margin when he came in for his stop, and once this whole shakeout occurs, then I fully suspect that he'll be back at the top of the order.
Scaife is far and away the quickest one out there. Look at that. What, 8.9 his last lap.
Brad Jones coming in as well. He was running as high as third. He's still to make his compulsory stop.
Scaife's murdering them for lap pace at the moment, as you said, Barry. His last lap was an 8.9. His fastest lap in the race so far is an 8.8. I don't think anybody else is. I don't even see anybody else in the low 9s, let alone the 8s.
Exactly. He's 0.8 quicker than anybody.
Shows the consistency though. He's done an 8.8 on lap 5.
Look at this. These guys got a problem with the front right. It took a long time to get that rattle gun to pull the nut off.
Scaife moving up the order as these compulsory stops unfold. Disastrous stop here.
Oh, look at that. It's crossed.
Absolute disaster.
And this is the pressure that pit stops bring. Things go wrong.
Aluminium and steel just don't mix, do they, really?
And this will put Radicic completely out of business for the rest of the day.
There's a problem with that front hub. That nut doesn't even look like it's going on.
Yeah, it just started to go on then, but it looks of it.
45 seconds.
What a nightmare.
Which is the equivalent of about 3 months.
By the time you add up the slowing down and speeding up, it's more than a lap.
It's like human years and dog years, isn't it?
Let's have a look at the Shell Helix replay. An incident with John Bowe and Paul Morris.
Oh, dear.
Morris goes rally crossing. Still manages to hang on to it. He's still well into the side of the Caterpillar Ford as they head up over the bridge. And he actually manages to pass the Cat Ford. Tony Longhurst. A bit further back in the pack. He is leading this one, but he's still got to make his compulsory pit stop. But the man who's actually leading the race by the time these two make their stops is going to be Mark Scaife. He's in third at the moment. Longhurst and Jason Richards in the Team Kiwi car just ahead of him.
That's a pretty sponsorship-free zone, isn't it?
It is.
Tony Longhurst has his brief moment at the front.
The closest in lap speed to Mark Scaife is fellow TWR Holden Todd Kelly, 1 minute 9.45. So that's a good 0.6 of a second away from Mark's time. So Scaife certainly got the setup and he's driving the car well. Yesterday I went over the back of the circuit and watched him come down through the complex, turns 6, 7, 8 over the old corner we used to call Sutton's Corner, and his car was working very nicely over there and he was driving it well there too. Very accurate, very smooth, very easy on the right rear tyre.
There's an indication of how long Jason Richards was in the pits. He was running second. He's come in and pit and he's just been passed by the race leader. So it shows how easily you can go down a lap here, but it'll only be momentary because Longhurst still has to make his compulsory stop. But you do spend a massive amount of time in pit lane.
The Kiwis will be cheering, and remember we've been plugging throughout the year. We're making our first offshore visit to the Shell Championship Series this year to Pukekohe outside Auckland. On board here with Lowndes battling Kelly, and Lowndes goes up the inside at turn 3. Looked like he did that pretty easily.
Takes 5th place. So the order: Longhurst, you take Longhurst out of the equation.
Understand these guys have got an enormous group of supporters that'll be coming out to Pukekohe to watch them race in the Vodafone Team Kiwi entry, and I'm sure that event's going to be well supported. If you haven't already grabbed a ticket for it and you can get to New Zealand, or you're watching us in New Zealand at the moment, thoroughly recommend getting a dose of V8 Supercars.
Here's your effective race leader, Mark Scaife.
Oh, and one of the FTR cars is off the road there, and Stephen Ellery, I think, was involved in that.
But they've struggled this weekend,
it was Ambrose.
1:09.7 for Scaife. Faulkner's in between himself and David Bernard, but Faulkner still has to make his compulsory stop, so it's Scaife, Bernard, Lowndes in third now, Todd Kelly fourth, Stephen Johnson fifth. That'll be the order once Longhurst and Faulkner have made their compulsory stops.
It looks like something may have happened there between Stephen Richards and Marcus Ambrose. They were disputing, believe it or not, 19th and 20th. Has the calibre of the drivers, the calibre of the teams, and they're down in that sort of position.
Scaife is still quicker than anybody else, and the next quickest one, as you were saying, is Jason Bright.
This is going into turn 3, and Marcus up the inside.
Oh dear.
Well and truly alongside him, and I don't think Stephen realised that Marcus was that far up, and it just shoved him wide. He left room for him, and then bang. Actually, they sort of interlocked front wheels, which was the reason for that little awkward moment, and Stephen heading off to the kart track there for a moment, but rejoins.
I don't know if Jason Bright made a terrible stop or he's had a moment, but he's dropped a lot of track position. Here's our race leader, Tony Longhurst, coming in, and there's the new race leader, Mark Scaife, in the background. So Scaife flashes past Longhurst in pit lane to take the lead.
He's got an eternity over the rest of them at the moment. Look at this margin. You can see in the background there as he comes up underneath Gary Holt. It was a little glimpse of David Bernard. So it's a huge margin as Tony comes in.
8.9 seconds, almost 9 seconds in front of Bernard in second. Craig Lowndes a further 1.1 seconds behind Bernard.
Just to look at who are the winners and losers of that pit stop round. David Bernard was one of the quickest on the times that we managed to get at 9.8 seconds, a lightning stop. Some of the slowest, Jason Bright at a 21-second stop, and Marcus Ambrose at a 19, his gun jammed. And lucky for John Bowe, the car lurched when he left pit lane and surged forward. It did go over the 40-kilometre-an-hour pit limit, but not for long enough, so he won't be penalised and won't cop one of those severe stop-go penalties.
So that's an interesting interpretation.
Yeah, how does that work?
I don't know. Interesting to find
Where does it say that in the regs? If you exceed the speed limit for not for very long, then you won't get your legs slapped.
Another 9.6, 1 minute 9.6 for Scaife, so 9.7. So very consistent. And you look at the times below him, everyone's running in the 1 minute 10-second bracket, so he's still punching out fast laps relative to the rest of the field.
He's got 9.4 seconds over Bernard.
See Bernard having a competitive run here. Lowndes is only 1.7 seconds behind Bernard, and they're doing virtually identical lap times. So Mark Scaife's got this one by the throat. Brilliant work by the Holden Racing team, not only in the speed of their pit stop, but just by their enormous track speed. They really are hosing everyone here just with very, very impressive lap times.
Well, it's a 9.4 second margin, Scaife to Bernard, and then the battle is on with Craig Lowndes third, Todd Kelly, John Faulkner up in fifth, Stephen Johnson, Russell Ingall and Garth Tander eighth.
Cameron McConville is inside the top 10. Jason Bright, though, just outside it. More V8 Supercars from Oran Park after this.
Watch a lap here with Mark Scaife at the helm, and you're watching some real driving efficiency. Scaife, the reigning champion in the #1 Holden Racing Team car, he's using every last millimetre. He's also preserving the tyres. You're not seeing the car get sideways. He's hitting the targets. He's making the apexes. Smooth application of the throttle. Here he is at the helm, heading up to turn 4 over the bumps and on the very bumpy approach up to the bridge. Grabs fourth gear. Off the throttle a little bit. You can't go too wide of the line here because there's no grip on the outside. Then the road drops away through turn 6. Use the little apron there on 7. Down in the hollow again to 8. Picks the throttle up nice and early. Gets left of that ripple strip. A nice smooth run. Stays with fourth. It's on the rev limiter a little bit on the downhill side. Back to third. Smooth slithers silk up onto the straight, no oversteer, uses all the road. If we could see it, the gap from that right rear mudguard to the wall's about 5 mil. And another lap done, and that time through, it was the first time in the 10s for Skate for 1 minute 10.1, but he's got a 10.5 second margin back to David Bernard.
Just on that previous lap, he found 0.4 of a second on Bernard in one lap. Check the gap this time, 11.2. Yeah, he's found another 0.7 on Bernard that lap, so he's just grinding him into submission. Scape, he's far and away fastest man on the circuit.
Yeah, not by a small margin either.
No.
When you consider this, how tight it was in just to get into the top 10 qualifying before you sort of made it into the shootout. It's amazing that there could be such a race gap, but the way in which he's got the car trimmed for race setup is far superior to anybody else's car out there at the moment.
Battle for second's pretty close though. Here's David Bernard falling into the clutches of Craig Lowndes. Very close, the two Fords. So this is going to be a fight to the finish. It's fantastic to see David Bernard showing the form that Ross and Jim Stone understand that he has. He's been very successful in open wheeler racing, but it's taken some time coming to terms with the V8 Supercar and how to get the most out of it. But it really does seem like it's starting to gel over the last 2 or 3 meetings. He's been getting stronger and stronger, and he's really delivered here so far.
He was saying that he changed the braking setup. What would he have done on that now?
I haven't asked the question, but some drivers prefer more or less bite at either end of the car, Barry. Some drivers don't like to have as much friction available in the rear of the car. Maybe the way in which its braking action worked didn't suit him. Maybe what Marcus likes and what David likes is two different things.
Oh, look at that. Oh, dear.
That was interesting. Tander could have taken advantage of that situation, but I'm sure he would have felt he would have got pinged.
Well, not only that, I think he actually made a conscious decision then not to make the move, because if he did go by, you would most certainly be sent via the pit lane for a visit.
That's smart driving by Tander. The officials have given the drivers the opportunity to redress a situation if they put themselves in a place where they can take pass. He's got him there. And here comes Cameron McConville as well. And the Optus Commodore, he's catching on these two hand over fist. I wonder if Ingle's got a problem.
Don't forget dreamdrive.tv. Log on, find out all about the competition, and there's some terrific prizes on offer, and you can play the V8 Supercar game online.
It does look as if Ingle's struggling with this thing, doesn't it?
Cameron McConville's just come out of nowhere. He's really pounced on the Castrol Commodore, who is losing position to the Valvoline Cummins car. So we could see another change of position in a moment.
Well, John Bower, your day unfortunately has not gone the right way at all. What's happened to the Cat Ford?
Well, it doesn't rain, of course. We had a major problem in the warm-up, and just then I got punted around a bit, which is the nature of the business. But it's I don't know why, but the power steering's failed, which I kept driving, and I mean, it's quite heavy. But now the water temperature's gone up, so I mean, I don't know, mate, but it's like everybody says in this sort of circumstances, that's racing.
Hard luck, John. Thanks, mate.
Well, that's very frustrating for John and the Cat team, and boy, I wouldn't like to be plugging around this of all tracks without power steering. I hope John's been in the gym and working those biceps, because he'll need to use every bit of strength he's got to get around here. They load up heavily on the steering.
Bit of damage on the back of the Optus Commodore. You can see the wheel just puffing out a bit of smoke. Oh, Lowndes has got past Bernard too. So just while we took our attention off that for a second, Lowndes is up into second place and pulling away from the Haviland Ford.
Got quite a margin over David now, so that'll reset the front row back to a Scaife Lowndes front row for the second race if it stays like this. We've still got 11 laps of racing to run.
So the order: Scaife Lowndes 12.9 seconds behind Scaife. David Bernard back to third, then it's Kelly, Johnson, Tander up to sixth, Ingle in seventh, McConville in eighth. Bright now is into the top 10. He's in ninth. Jason Bargwanna in 10th. So the two Valvoline Cummins cars in the top 10.
So far, so good. They got the forecast wrong. It's supposed to rain here today, isn't it?
Well, it's been pretty wet in Sydney, but out to the southwest, it's been a little bit better all weekend, thankfully. We're watching Craig Lowndes. His last lap of 1 minute 10.4, which was nearly 3/10 quicker than Scaife. Mark's got a 12.9. Bernard gets wide. He actually dropped the left rear into the dirty part of the track off the bridge. That's why the big margin.
Pretty lucky there, wasn't he?
Actually, he was very lucky.
Whoa, dear me.
He gathered it up. Yep.
You might be wondering why we say lucky when you make a mistake and drop a position, but lucky because if he went off the road, on the edges of the track at the moment, Barry, it's so red. We've had so much rain in Sydney in the last week that you'd bury the thing to the gunnels if you went off the edge of the road at the moment. There's so much mud.
12.9 seconds, the gap between first and second. Scaife's just on a 1:10.6. Lowndes a 1:10.3. So Lowndes really got the foot down now. It's closer to 0.3 of a second, but I would suspect Mark Scaife is looking pretty comfortable out there at the moment.
I didn't think John Faulkner was going to let him by then, and Lowndes had momentum. I thought we were going to have a bit of a moment, but it didn't occur. Car 2, Jason Bright, he's back in 8th at the moment. Costly pit stop for him. And this little battle here is actually quite a good one. It involves Russell Ingall, Jason Bright, Cameron McConville. Jason Bargwanna's up there as well after a frightful qualifying, and he's not far adrift. You can see it just in the background in the Valvoline car. He was lurking there.
He's done an amazing job, actually, to get up into the top 10. Already qualified.
I don't think I've ever seen Garth Tander look so miserable as he looked yesterday.
Bargwanna qualified 24th. He's up inside the top 10, so that's a great job by the Valvoline Cummins team.
One of the features of Garth's race days typically in recent times has been his just determination to keep on digging. He's 6th at the moment, and you know, it's well documented that they've not been having the year that they had last year, but they continue to fight. They're doing a good job. They've obviously got cars working better on the race day, but it's too late because outfits like this are getting it right on every opportunity, whether it's qualifying, starting. It's the sort of stuff we covered at Calder. All of the aspects of the game are being well covered by them. There's the margin, Scaife to Lowndes. Scaife is off on the way to turn 4. Lowndes is exiting turn 2. Last time through, the computer says 12.4 seconds.
Lowndes has gone a fraction quicker than Scaife again.
It's interesting their times have stabilised now. If anything, Craig's a little quicker, but you'd expect Mark to roll out of it ever so slightly just to look after the rear tyres. But it would appear as though the way their various cars are trimmed that Mark's has plateaued much later in the race than Craig's. So he had pace early on when it counted, and that's what's given him the break.
David Bernard, best result by far for him. Had a strong run at Hidden Valley. He lost his way a bit through the sprint rounds, but he's now well and truly back in contention here. 24th in the championship and 24 years of age. This is the battle that's been raging between Russell Ingall, Jason Bright and Cameron McConville. I've got to say, Lansvale Racing Team doing a tremendous job in 2001. Very consistent performances. We saw them in the top 10 at Barbagallo. Another strong performance at Calder, and here they are at Oran Park, continuing that top 10 form. It's a good performance by the Sydney-based team.
Where Russell is watching Jason. He was very slow right in the mid-corner compared to the HRT car, and he couldn't get the power on either, and that's given Bright the run that he needed. And, you know, Russell probably knew that he was well and truly a target then. You can see that he had good pace over the dogleg. He matched him under brakes. Their turn-in was the same, but right in the mid-corner he really struggled. Hard to know from here whether that was because the car wouldn't turn properly or whether he couldn't get on the throttle, but it doesn't take much. That's exactly the sort of indication. You've only got to be fractionally slower somewhere and a pass can be made.
This is the battle for 7th place. Jason Bright, Russell Ingall and Cameron McConville. Telemetry on board the Castrol Commodore. An idea of the road speed on the left-hand side of your screen. He just gets left a little bit behind. He's struggling a bit here. Could well fall into the clutches of Cameron McConville. We saw Cameron all over the back of him a couple of laps ago. He was able to respond to that challenge. McConville's just sitting in his mirrors, and you can see Russell's well aware of that. So fighting for every point here.
Talking about the web earlier on, when you go online, check out the V8 Supercars site, v8supercar.com.au. Lots of information on there about the series, the drivers, the teams, the point scores, and all the news. So check it out online, v8supercar.com.au.
Pretty good round this.
I reckon Russell's spending as much time looking in the mirror as he is looking through the windscreen at the moment.
It does look like he's having a bit of a hard time because he's looking like he was working up a bit of a sweat there.
He does. He's got, actually he's run a bit of water temperature, doesn't he?
Cameron McConville was a couple of tenths quicker than him last time around. Very close behind the Castrol Commodore, just shadowing him. Looking for the slightest mistake from Ingall.
It can be a very long race at Oran Park when the car's not right. And it's just constant corners.
This must be one of the most difficult circuits for a driver to set a car up now.
I think it is, and I guess we tend to say it at each event. You know, this is a tough track and this is a tough track. They can all be quite awkward, but this one in particular, Marcus Ambrose said to me yesterday, it's 2 tracks in one, and that's a pretty accurate description. You've got a fairly conventional layout through the first 4 turns, and then from the top of the bridge to the last corner, all these undulations, off camber, positive camber, ripple strips, and it doesn't have a lot of grip in the road surface, and so it can be quite baffling. You can end up with a car that's good in some places and an absolute dog in others.
I remember your happy smiling face last year, Neil.
Yeah, last year I was lucky to see it to 5 o'clock for fear of finding sharp instruments. It was shocking. 12.1 seconds Scaife to Lowndes, and Scaife's now in the low 11s and Lowndes is in the high 10s, so they are eating tyres away. And I think you asked me at some point over the course of the weekend, Barry, about whether it's hard on tyres. It certainly can be. We have a look at the Shell Helix race score. There's the margin first to second, then it's Bernard, Kelly, Johnson, Tander, Bright and Russell Ingall defending there in 8th.
McConville and Jason Bargwanna in the top 10. Seaton, Brad Jones, good effort by the Aussie Mail boys. They're in 12th. Perkins, Ambrose, Longhurst and Stephen Ellery in 16th.
Paul Morris, Stephen Richards, Radishish, McLean, Forbes, Mazira, Richards and Faulkner. Stay with us. We're back with the conclusion of race 1 in just a moment. Into the twilight of this first race now. They're working the 32nd of 36 laps, and the margins come down slightly. Scaife to Lowndes, 9.6 seconds. Lap times are interesting because Scaife's last lap was a 12.4. Lowndes' last lap was an 11.2. I suspect that Mark found heavy traffic on the last lap. Bit of activity over the course of the break, and have a look at this. We've got a bit of a battle going on here with Longhurst up the inside of Ambrose and Wallop.
Ouch. Marcus Ambrose.
Where did he get out of that?
Running in 14th. Isn't it amazing how the fortunes of these two Stone Brothers Fords change around? David Bernard's been on the absolute receiving end for the first half of the season, and now things are going bad for Marcus, and David's form's picking up.
I was going to make the comment, and here's another replay of that situation with Longhurst up the inside. Ambrose turns in, they make contact.
See the big dent in the back of Tony's car there?
Off he goes. The point that I was going to make was that Cameron McLean, when we went away in the break, had smoke coming from his car. It looked like he might have just rubbed the wall or another competitor. He had a lot of damage around the right rear corner of that car.
Lowndes has taken
continues.
Another second out of that lead. It's down to 8.6 seconds. You do get the impression that Mark Scaife is a hugely experienced driver, and he's probably just protecting these tyres to make sure he's got a good selection of rubber for the second 45-minute race later on today.
There's some smiling faces down here in your pit garage. The boys were well outside the top 20 in practice, but at the moment GT's in 6th position and Jason Bargwanna's 10th.
Yes, Greg, they're going well. I mean, we've struggled this year, particularly with qualifying, but I mean, here Garth qualified 9th, and I think that shows, we're still not where we need to be, but we're certainly improving, and I think as the year goes on, we can do a little bit better.
The team had a fairly successful test in the days leading up to this round at Winton, didn't they?
Yeah, we've always done well at Winton, and that perhaps can be a little bit confusing because maybe we're basing too much of our application to different circuits on what we're doing at Winton, and various circuits have various opportunities that perhaps Winton doesn't present, and I think we've probably got to get away from that a little bit.
Well, Gary, things look like they're getting back on track. Well done.
Thanks very much, Greg.
Well, they certainly are, because Tander goes up the inside of McConville coming onto the straight, so that's another one that they can tick off, I should say, Bargwanna. But it's definitely been an improved race run by comparison to the qualifying thing that Gary was talking about. It's interesting that maybe they've reached their use-by date. Larry's come in, by the way. Problem there for him. Maybe they've reached the point where they're no longer getting valuable information from their testing at Winton. You can't spend too long at one circuit. You start to lock into the traits of that circuit, and they don't apply everywhere else.
A lot of the Queensland teams complain about that. I know they test a Queensland Raceway. You can grind around there and look like a hero, and you take those gains to another circuit and they don't translate at all. Mark Scaife, field day here for Holden Racing Team. He's just cruising. 2 laps remaining.
Yeah, he's just absolutely creamed them. I mean, he's just taking it nice and easy now, saving his tyres down to 7.5, 6.8, but it's nothing to worry about.
No, well under control. So they have been the dominant force at Oran Park for many, many years. It started in 1996.
There's Brad and Glenn having a little dice. This was raging at Colden for 432nd position. They were both talking. I saw them both last week, and they were bluing about how crazy it was back in the pack at Calder, and they've renewed that little battle. They're in 11th and 12th at the moment, which is a reasonable recovery. Both of them, I think, were around the 19th, 20th or thereabouts. Oh, Tanner up the inside of Bright.
Bright's.
And vice versa.
Yep. Really trading positions toward the end. These two are fighting over 6th place.
And again. Yes, and again. Nice one.
Switchback. Tanner up the inside. They're going to go side by side off the bridge. There's nothing between. There's a little bit of contact there too. So Jason Bright, as we've seen, standard practice for the Holden Racing Team driver. Starts the weekend off slow and forges his way toward the front. He is putting together one hell of a consistent championship.
But he's always struggled with that car, hasn't he? From a brand new car, and it's always struggled to get it set up.
But even when he took that race win at Adelaide Base, he came right from the back of the field. So it's been the way he's achieved his success throughout the year. Not strong in qualifying. When it comes to the race, he just gets his head down and he just continues to bag big lots of points everywhere he goes.
One to go.
This should be an interesting last lap.
Down at turns 4, 5, 6, they constantly traded spots, so it will be interesting.
Bit of a hit there.
That's not a good place to be on the outside at turn 3, but he'll try and crisscross him and go up the inside for the next corner.
Garth Tander defending hard in the Valvoline's Cummins machine, and Bright has a sniff up the inside, but Tander's got the racing line well and truly covered.
Scafie just about knocked this thing to neutral 10 minutes ago, didn't he? And
1:11.7 his last lap, so he is absolutely in cruise mode. Holden Racing Team fans give him a big cheer. He's absolutely dominated proceedings here as he points it toward the start-finish line to take victory in race 1. Round 8.
Could have driven the car as fast as at the end.
At Oran Park. Well done to Mark Scaife, the reigning Shell Series champion and championship leader in 2001. That'll do his championship campaign no harm.
Yeah, he held on, Tanner.
Tanner just held on as Bright tried everything to get past the Valvoline Cummins car. There's second place man Craig Lowndes. 5.6 seconds was the difference at the end. It looked like Mark Scaife well and truly in cruise mode. He had this race shot to bits.
I'll tell you what, the race pace at the end was very slow for everybody. You know, Scaife 11.7, Lowndes 11.2, Bernard 11.4, Kelly 12.1. They were the last laps recorded by each of the top runners. That's not quick round this track, so they're really limping home tyre-wise at the end. 10 tyres allocated this weekend because of the longer races, so they'll make up their best set for race number 2 as Scaife acknowledges the marshals in the crowd, and Craig Lowndes finishing second. Let's confirm all the placings for you. Race 1, round 8, Mark Scaife 5-second margin over Lowndes, then Bernard for 3rd, Kelly, Johnson, Tander, Bright and Russell Ingall.
Jason Bargwana and Cameron McConville in the top 10 once again. Seaton, Jones, Longhurst, Ellery, Morris, Ambrose. More after this.
Well, welcome back to Oran Park. Some cheers and applause down here at the Holden Racing Team because Mark Scaife, you had a tough run at Calder, but by gee, you've brained them in the first race here at Oran Park. Well done.
Well, Rusty, I mean, the car was just fantastic. I mean, we had to get a good start. The car got off the line pretty well, and then after that, I was able to conserve the tyres. I mean, I drove it around pretty gently at the end there and made sure that they're in good nick for the rest of the day, so looking forward to another one.
Looked like a jet, mate. The car itself is handling superbly.
Oh, just fantastic. I mean, it was probably a better car, I've said, through the weekend on on used tyres, and it showed up then how consistent it was. So, looking forward to another trouble-free, drama-free race.
Good luck.
Thanks, mate.
It was drama-free, Mark. You did a great job, but it was a huge margin at the end there to Craig Lowndes. Look at some of these other guys that also did a great job. Jason Bargwana, who qualified 24th, finishing 9th. That's excellent. Ditto, Glenn Seaton, Brad Jones, 11th and 12th. Those two guys qualifying 21st and 19th respectively. And we did speak with John Bow, who had another tough race there, not finishing, showing there as 27th. Well, some big news during the week in the V8 Supercar ranks because we have a change of supplier for the control tyre for next year and beyond. Mark Osler has more.
3 years
years ago, Avesco awarded a contract to Bridgestone to supply control tyres to V8 supercar racing, and the concept has been an enormous success. The idea of supplying exactly the same tyre to every car in the field has been one of the key foundations behind V8 supercar racing's amazing growth and stability. But things are about to change. In 2002, V8 supercar racing will continue to use control tyres, but will switch from Bridgestone to Dunlop. The new 3-year contract will be the first time Dunlops have been used in V8 supercars since 1998, the last year of open competition between tyre brands. Dunlop's control tyres will be handmade at the company's new facility in Nagoya, Japan. Local testing to determine a suitable specification is scheduled to start next month, involving a number of V8 teams on a variety of circuits. Dunlop's achievements during its 3-year absence from V8 supercars have been impressive. Dominance of 125 and 250cc Grand Prix motorcycle racing and third outright at this year's Le Mans 24-hour sports car race proves the company has not been sitting on its hands. For some teams, the return of Dunlop will be like winding back the clock.
Well, I think it's great. I'm delighted that Dunlop won it on commercial merit. That's fantastic, and I know they can rise to the occasion and make an excellent tyre. And hey, look, every 23, I think, of my 24 Bathursts have been on Dunlops, and every win I've ever had there has been on Dunlop. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
Do you think all the experience and data you guys gathered while you were running Dunlop tyres up till 1998 are going to be any benefit to you in this new era?
I don't really believe so. The cars are so much different now to what they were, 2.5, 3 years ago. It's quite incredible. So I don't think that's going to be of any use to anyone.
For others, the switch to Dunlop rubber will be their first. A new experience, a new technical challenge.
I think as long as everybody's on the same tyre, it doesn't really matter at the end of the day, because as long as the tyre doesn't fall apart and the cases stay together and things like that, it could be really interesting. It's probably an area where I seem to have pretty good luck of being able to make a car set up around something that's new, but hopefully it will be that situation with a Dunlop.
Interesting. I've never driven on a Dunlop tyre before, so it seems like they're fairly committed to really getting behind the category with their marketing and whatnot. So as long as they come up with a good tyre that does the job, I don't see it being any bad thing at all.
Hi, I'm David Bernard from Stone Brothers Racing. These things are great fun to drive, but if you want real speed, thrills and high technology, you can't beat the action of this. A few months ago, when I was still living in Sydney, I was a little bit bored. I wasn't racing the V8 supercars full time back then and wanted something to do, we all need our adrenaline rush. So, away I went, and I was quite competitive at it and ended up winning most of the races I went in. Look at that, I can do donuts and I don't lose 30 points or $10,000. They might look like toys, but just basically everything's like the race car, but smaller. There's actually a whole range of different springs and that I've got here. There's another spare pair of shocks. You change the weight of the oil in the shocks. We've got about 5 different oil weights. Different gear ratios, everything. Ride heights, cambers, you can see the camber adjusters here. Preload adjusters. So you spend a good couple of hours testing before you go racing each week, just like the real thing. I've been thinking about it. I pulled the motor out of it. I want to put it on the dyno because I think I can get 2 more horsepower out of it. Oh, not on this one, I don't think. Everyone's just as serious as I am about it, and no, they're no toys at all. Really hard, close racing, quite a lot of crashes. You always see, oh, you idiot, hey, that's a bit rough or whatever. It's just like the real thing. The drivers get into each other. And... Sorry, Marcus.
Craig Lowndes' second performance today, but not the best of starts for you.
No, definitely. We've changed our method slightly, and it didn't help us. But really, with these races, you can make it up in the pit stops, and we're able to do that. The Gibson guys did a great pit stop, and we got out in front of, I guess, Jason Bright, who followed me in, but also on the back of Todd Kelly and David Bernard. So we're able to pressure them as soon as we got out.
Yeah, your old teammate finished first in that race. Going to claw back and get him in the second?
Well, we hope so. It's the car at the moment probably is not as good as what Mark's is, but we'll make some changes and we'll get back up there.
Thanks, Craig.
Thanks, Mad Dog.
Mad Dog? Well, throughout the season we've been promoting the Shell Helix competition, and we can proudly announce the winner of the Shell Helix competition this year is Louisa Ross from Labrador in Queensland. Louisa, you have won a trip for two to the Queensland 500 valued at $3,500. Congratulations, and we'll look forward to seeing you at the end of August for that magnificent event. The first time that we'll see co-drivers in the Shell Championship Series throughout this year. Big crowd in attendance for round 8 of the championship here at Oran Park. We're coming back after this break with race number 2. You're watching Network 10, your home of motorsport.